Yes, there she was. My heart hammered against my ribs, pure, undiluted adrenaline flooding my system as I watched her through my phone screen. Frozen in the late-night gloom of the campus quad, caught utterly red-handed. The spray can hissed in her grip, scarring the banner I'd hung just hours before. Chloe. The campus crusader for all things woke, acting like a common vandal in the dead of night. A wave of intense satisfaction washed over me, sharp and clean. Weeks. It had been weeks of her escalating campaign of harassment, the whispers, the accusations, the sabotage, and now, finally, undeniable proof. Her crusade against my event, against me, was about to blow up in her smug, self-righteous face. I zoomed in slightly, making sure the camera captured every detail, especially the logo on that ridiculously expensive jacket she wore while pretending to fight the system. Oh, the irony was just perfect. This video wasn't just evidence, it was poetic justice. It's strange how quickly things can spiral. Just a few months ago, my life as Mark, a third-year history major at Northridge University, felt completely ordinary. My biggest worries were upcoming exams and maybe getting the plumbing fixed in my off-campus apartment. I'm generally a pretty low-key guy. I focus on my studies, hang out with a small group of friends, and try to make the most of college without getting sucked into the constant drama that seems to thrive here. My main passion project, the thing that actually got me excited outside of required coursework, was the university's debate and discourse club. We weren't exactly the cool kids on campus. Our meetings were more about analyzing arguments than planning parties. But I genuinely believe in what we do. I think it's crucial to grapple with different ideas, even uncomfortable ones. How else are you supposed to figure out what you actually think? University should be about challenging your assumptions, not reinforcing echo chambers. That's how I was raised. My parents always emphasized common sense, listening more than you talk, and being able to disagree with someone without trying to destroy them. Just basic, decent human interaction. But that approach felt increasingly alien on a campus obsessed with labels, microaggressions, and a specific brand of social justice that often seemed more about performance than principle. I mostly kept my head down, navigating the minefield of potential offenses as best I could. This semester, though, I decided to aim higher with the club. I wanted to host an event that sparked real intellectual engagement. I managed to book Dr. Eris Thorne, a historian known for his rigorous research but whose conclusions sometimes challenged prevailing narratives, especially those held dear by campus activists. He wasn't some shock jock, he was a serious academic. My goal was simple: present his perspective, allow for robust Q&A, and let students engage critically. A marketplace of ideas, right? I meticulously planned everything. Secured the funding, booked the largest lecture hall we could afford, confirmed Dr. Thorne's travel, started designing promotional materials. I felt a genuine sense of purpose, like I was contributing something valuable. I pictured students debating respectfully, maybe learning something new, pushing their own boundaries. What I didn't realize was that in the eyes of some, I wasn't fostering dialogue, I was committing an act of aggression. And the self-appointed guardian of campus purity was about to make me her personal target. The attack began, predictably, online. A flurry of notifications lit up my phone. The Debate and Discourse Club's page was being bombarded. The source? Chloe Ramirez. Even if you somehow hadn't crossed paths with her, you knew of her. Chloe was the quintessential campus activist stereotype brought to life. Ever-changing hair colors, a lapel full of pronoun pins, and a seemingly inexhaustible supply of outrage. She saw systemic oppression in the cafeteria menu and demanded trigger warnings for Shakespeare. Her activism felt less like conviction and more like a performance piece, designed for maximum attention. Her post about our event was a masterclass in inflammatory rhetoric. Without engaging with Dr. Thorne's actual work, she labeled him a purveyor of hate speech and violence. She claimed our event threatened the safety of marginalized students and demanded its immediate cancellation. She tagged every university official imaginable, unleashing a flood of hashtags like "No Hate at Northridge" and "Safe Space Now." It was a digital declaration of war. My first reaction was annoyance mixed with a weary sense of déjà vu. Typical Chloe, I thought. All noise, no substance. Surely nobody in charge would take this hyperbolic nonsense seriously? We'd followed every procedure, the speaker was legitimate, the event was clearly academic. I posted a calm, factual reply, clarifying the event's intent and inviting dialogue. I figured it would blow over. Just another campus tempest in a teapot. But the knot of dread tightening in my gut told me I might be wrong. Chloe wasn't known for backing down, especially when she sensed blood in the water. This wasn't just a post, it was the first shot fired in a campaign to shut us down. The subtle sabotage started almost immediately. Our event flyers, carefully placed on bulletin boards across campus, began to look like they'd been through a war zone. Scrawled marker messages, words like fascist, bigot, danger, covered Dr. Thorne's picture. Ugly stickers demanding censorship were plastered over the event details. It felt personal, invasive. Each defaced flyer was a small act of aggression, designed to intimidate and delegitimize. I spent hours replacing them, only for the new ones to meet the same fate within a day. Then came the escalation I'd feared. An official summons arrived from the Student Activities Office. Chloe hadn't just stuck to social media and petty vandalism, she'd filed a formal grievance. Her complaint was a lengthy document filled with academic jargon twisted to suit her narrative, citing university policies on safety and inclusivity completely out of context. She demanded our club be defunded and the event permit revoked. The meeting was excruciating. I found myself defending the very concept of academic freedom to a mid-level administrator who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. I explained Dr. Thorne's credentials, the event's purpose, our commitment to respectful dialogue. The administrator listened with a pained expression, mumbled something about needing to consult with the Office of Equity and Inclusion, and informed me that our lecture hall booking was now under administrative review, effectively putting it on hold indefinitely. My blood ran cold. This was actually working. Chloe's campaign of manufactured outrage was gaining traction within the bureaucracy. Later that week, I saw her holding court at a student government meeting, surrounded by her acolytes. She was animatedly recounting her efforts to protect the campus community from our dangerous event. Our eyes met across the crowded room. She didn't flinch or look away. Instead, a slow, deliberate smirk spread across her face. It was dripping with smug satisfaction. It wasn't the look of someone fighting for justice. It was the look of someone relishing the power to cause chaos, enjoying the game. Her followers became bolder. They started showing up wherever I tried to promote the event. If I had a table in the student union, they'd flank it, thrusting counterflyers filled with lies into the hands of anyone who approached. They wouldn't debate. They'd just chant, loudly accusing Dr. Thorne, and by extension me, of heinous beliefs. Their goal was clear: create such an intimidating atmosphere that no one would dare show interest. Chloe's definition of a safe space was becoming terrifyingly clear. A space safe only for her views, enforced through intimidation and censorship. My frustration simmered, morphing into a cold anger. This wasn't about differing opinions anymore. It was about bullying. And I was the primary target. The situation went from bad to worse with alarming speed. Chloe wasn't content with flyers and complaints. She brought the fight directly to us. I'd scheduled a small info session for club members and interested students, hoping to clarify Dr. Thorne's work and answer questions in a calm setting. We were maybe 15 people in a seminar room, just trying to have a reasonable discussion. Suddenly the door flew open. Chloe marched in, trailed by about 10 or 12 of her most fervent followers. They immediately erupted into chanting, waving signs with slogans like "Your silence is violence" and "Platforming hate kills." The noise was deafening, instantly shattering the conversation. Students who had come with genuine questions looked stunned, then scared. Chloe stepped forward, her face contorted in a mask of righteous fury, and pointed directly at me. "Mark Johnson," she screamed, her voice echoing in the small room, "you are personally endangering students by bringing this fascist to our campus. You are enabling hate. Shame." Her followers took up the chant, "Shame. Shame. Shame." It was utterly surreal, like a scene from some historical persecution, not a university meeting. I tried to intervene, asking for calm, offering her a chance to speak if they would just stop shouting. But they weren't interested in talking. They were there to dominate, to intimidate, to shut down any possibility of dialogue. They kept up the barrage for nearly 15 minutes before finally sweeping out, leaving behind a palpable sense of violation and fear. Several students gathered their belongings and left immediately, visibly shaken. The info session was ruined. The very next morning, Chloe launched an online petition. It was a masterpiece of manipulation, filled with cherry-picked quotes, blatant misrepresentations of Dr. Thorne's research, and outright lies about the event's purpose. It painted me as some kind of villain willingly collaborating with forces of evil. Boosted by Chloe's relentless social media campaign, the signature count climbed rapidly. Predictably, this triggered another summons from the administration. This time, the dean of students himself wanted to see me. The tone was graver. Dean Miller spoke about the petition, the disruption at the info session, and growing concerns about campus climate and potential security risks. He didn't explicitly say I had to cancel, but the pressure was immense. He strongly suggested I postpone the event, or perhaps restructure it to include a pre-approved counterpanel, essentially, letting Chloe dictate the terms. I left that meeting feeling completely besieged. The stress was immense. I wasn't sleeping well. Every email notification made my stomach clench. I saw Chloe strutting around campus like a conquering hero, basking in the attention. Whispers reached me that she was boasting about how easy it was to manipulate the administration, how she was going to make an example of me and ensure no one dared invite a controversial speaker again. That was the breaking point. The sheer injustice, the blatant bullying, the manipulation. It ignited something in me. This wasn't just about Dr. Thorne anymore. It was about standing up to this toxic culture of censorship disguised as safety. Passive defense wasn't working. Reasoned arguments were ignored. Chloe understood only power and pressure. Fine. If I was going to save this event and salvage my own reputation, I needed leverage. I needed undeniable proof of her malicious tactics, proof that would cut through her facade of righteousness. I started watching her more closely, observing her patterns, waiting for an opportunity. I knew she was behind the vandalism, the sheer consistency pointed to it. I just needed to prove it. The relentless destruction of our promotional materials became an obsession. Every single morning, more flyers ripped down, more posters spray painted, the banner in the student center becoming a recurring casualty. I reported it each time, but without witnesses or clear camera footage, campus security could only shrug sympathetically. Yet the attacks were too targeted, too consistent to be random. It had Chloe's fingerprints all over it, metaphorically speaking. Her smug confidence grew with each successful act of sabotage. Frustration boiled over into a plan. A risky plan, maybe a little desperate, but I felt I had no other choice. The main bulletin board in the high-traffic quad area was her favorite target. Flyers there had a lifespan measured in hours, not days. If I could catch the vandal there red-handed, it would be undeniable. So, one night, after meticulously putting up a fresh batch of flyers and a new, slightly less expensive banner, I considered it bait. I decided to conduct my own surveillance. Around 11 p.m., I found a hiding spot behind a dense cluster of bushes across the quad, offering a clear, shadowed view of the bulletin board. The campus was eerily quiet, bathed in the cool glow of the security lights. I waited. And waited. An hour passed, then another. My legs cramped and the damp chill of the grass seeped into my clothes. Doubts crept in. Maybe this was stupid. Maybe I was just being paranoid. Just as I was contemplating packing it in, movement near the student center caught my eye. Two figures, hoods up, walking quickly and purposefully towards the bulletin board. My pulse quickened. Even hooded, the posture, the way one of them moved, it was unmistakably Chloe. Her companion looked like Sarah, one of her most devoted followers. They cast quick, furtive glances around the deserted quad, believing themselves unseen. Then they got to work with chilling efficiency. Chloe produced a can of red spray paint. Sarah started ripping down my flyers with systematic precision, stuffing the evidence into her backpack. My fingers trembled slightly as I raised my phone, tapping the record button. The low-light video quality wasn't Hollywood perfect, but it was clear enough. Devastatingly clear. It captured Chloe shaking the can, the sharp hiss as paint hit the banner, forming crude, hateful words. It captured Sarah tearing down every single flyer. Their movements were practiced, efficient. This clearly wasn't their first time. And then the moment of pure, unscripted hypocrisy. As Chloe leaned closer to the banner for a final flourish of spray paint, her hood slipped back just enough. The security light glinted off the prominent logo on the sleeve of her jacket. A brand notorious for its fast fashion ethics, the kind of corporation Chloe loved to condemn in her virtue-signaling posts about sustainable living and ethical consumption. The irony was breathtaking. The anti-capitalist warrior, committing vandalism while decked out in the spoils of the system she claimed to despise. I kept recording until they finished their destruction, crumpled the ruined banner, and melted back into the shadows towards the dorms. My hands were shaking, but it wasn't from the cold anymore. It was pure, unadulterated triumph. I had her. Cold, hard, undeniable video proof. The game wasn't just changed, it was over. Her righteous crusade was exposed as petty vengeance and hypocrisy. And I had the receipts. The following morning, the gnawing anxiety I'd lived with for weeks was gone, replaced by a focused calm. I didn't blast the video across social media. I didn't confront Chloe in the hallway. That would be giving her drama attention. No, this required a different approach. Strategic. Official. I backed up the video file multiple times, took a deep breath, and walked with purpose towards the administration building, straight to the office of Dean Miller. I requested an immediate meeting, stating firmly that I possessed conclusive evidence regarding the campaign of harassment and vandalism targeting the Debate and Discourse Club event. The urgency in my voice must have registered, because his assistant showed me in promptly. Dean Miller looked tired, his expression conveying a deep weariness with this entire saga. I sensed he just wanted it all to disappear. I calmly, methodically recounted the entire sequence of events, starting with Chloe's initial online attacks and progressing through the formal complaint, the info session disruption, the relentless destruction of materials, and the petition filled with distortions. I emphasized the clear pattern. This wasn't legitimate protest, it was a calculated campaign of intimidation aimed at silencing speech she disliked. Then I placed my phone on the polished surface of his desk. "Dean Miller," I said, my voice steady, "I know you've been dealing with conflicting accounts. Last night, I obtained proof that settles the matter definitively." I pressed play. The dean leaned in, his eyes fixed on the screen. His eyebrows gradually rose as he watched the hooded figures of Chloe and Sarah systematically deface the banner and rip down the flyers. He saw the spray paint can in Chloe's hand, saw their furtive glances, saw the deliberate nature of their actions. He remained silent until the video concluded, the faint hiss of the spray paint the only sound in the recording. He leaned back, tenting his fingers, his expression shifting from weary to grimly serious. "Thank you for bringing this directly to me, Mark," he said, his voice low. "This is profoundly disappointing. And it requires action." He picked up his office phone. Minutes later, Chloe was summoned. She walked in with her usual air of defiant entitlement, likely expecting another tedious meeting where she could lecture everyone about her perceived victimhood and moral superiority. Her eyes widened in shock when she saw me sitting there. She hadn't anticipated this. Sarah wasn't called yet. The dean clearly intended to address Chloe first. "Chloe," Dean Miller began, his tone devoid of its usual weary patience, "we need to address the ongoing issues surrounding the Debate and Discourse Club event. Mark has presented serious allegations of harassment and property destruction." Predictably, Chloe launched straight into her well-rehearsed script. "Dean Miller," she protested, her voice ringing with indignation, "this event is fundamentally unsafe. Mark is providing a platform for dangerous ideologies. We have a constitutional right to protest. Our actions constitute legitimate counterspeech aimed at protecting vulnerable students." "Counterspeech?" The dean interrupted sharply, cutting through her diatribe. "Since when does counterspeech involve spray paint and sneaking around campus after midnight to destroy property?" Chloe faltered, just for a second, a flicker of unease in her eyes. "I don't know what you're referring to," she stammered, attempting to regain control. "I haven't destroyed anything. Mark is fabricating these claims because he can't defend his speaker's hateful views. He's trying to silence legitimate criticism." Dean Miller simply nodded towards me. I picked up my phone again, turned the screen towards Chloe, and hit play. The color drained instantly from her face. Her jaw went slack. The arrogant defiance evaporated, replaced by raw panic. She stared, mesmerized, at her own image on the screen, caught, exposed, the spray condemningly visible in her hand, the fast fashion logo on her jacket almost mocking her. The room fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. It's misleading." She finally choked out, grasping for any defense. "It's taken out of context. We were just expressing our strong opposition." "By committing vandalism?" The dean countered, his voice dangerously quiet. "Chloe, the footage is unambiguous. This isn't protest. This isn't counterspeech. This is a clear violation of the university's code of conduct, plain and simple. It confirms Mr. Johnson's account of a deliberate campaign of harassment and intimidation. Chloe visibly deflated. Trapped by the undeniable evidence, her usual weapons, outrage accusations, appeals to victimhood, were useless. There was no explosive meltdown, no tears. Just the quiet, stunning realization that the game was up. Her smirk was gone, replaced by a look of utter dismay. The consequences were swift and decisive. Following a formal disciplinary hearing where the video evidence was presented, Chloe was found responsible for vandalism, harassment, and multiple code of conduct violations. Her punishment was significant: a 1-year suspension from all extracurricular activities and leadership roles, mandatory financial restitution for the damages, and strict academic probation. Sarah received a similar, slightly less severe penalty. The activist group Chloe had led scrambled to distance themselves, their reputation tarnished by association. Crucially, the university administration, now fully appraised of the situation, guaranteed the event would proceed as planned, providing ample campus security to ensure no further incidents. A profound sense of relief washed over me, heavier and more satisfying than I could have imagined. It wasn't just that the event was safe, it was that the bully had finally faced accountability. Justice served cold and on video. The day of Dr. Thorne's talk felt almost anticlimactic after the preceding weeks of drama. Uniformed campus security officers were present but maintained a low profile. There were no chanting crowds, no angry signs, no sign of Chloe or her former clique. Inside the lecture hall, nearly every seat was filled. It seemed the controversy, ironically, had drummed up significant interest from students eager to hear the forbidden ideas for themselves. Dr. Thorne spoke eloquently, presented his research clearly, and handled the subsequent Q&A with academic poise. The questions from the audience were sharp, critical, and probing, but respectful. Students engaged, debated, disagreed, and perhaps even learned something. It was exactly the kind of challenging, stimulating intellectual environment I had hoped to foster. It felt like a small but significant victory for open inquiry on campus. In the weeks that followed, the campus atmosphere shifted subtly. Chloe Ramirez became a much less visible figure. Stripped of her platform and under the cloud of probation, her performative activism ceased. Some former allies seemed to keep their distance. She didn't vanish entirely, but the swagger was gone. The reign of outrage felt, at least temporarily, subdued. Reflecting on it all, the entire episode remains profoundly absurd. The fact that organizing a simple academic lecture requires resorting to midnight stakeouts and video evidence to counter vandalism and false accusations is an indictment of the campus climate. But there was deep satisfaction in exposing the hypocrisy lurking beneath the veneer of righteous activism. Catching Chloe not only in the act of vandalism but also decked out in the symbols of the consumerism she publicly decried, it felt like perfect karmic justice. It demonstrated that often, the loudest proponents of tolerance can be the most intolerant, and those screaming about virtue are sometimes the least virtuous. My life returned to its normal rhythm, but I felt different, more resilient, less intimidated, and more convinced than ever of the importance of standing firm for open discussion, even when the woke mob tries to shout you down. Sometimes you just need to be ready to catch them in the act.